Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a pretty wild story, a tangled web of conflict and covert ops that stretches all the way from East Africa to the Persian Gulf. We're going to connect the dots between an assassination attempt, a huge corruption scandal, and a growing shadow war.
So, you hear about an assassination attempt, a corruption scandal, a covert threat, and you probably think they're all separate stories, right? Well, according to our source material, they're not. They are all pieces of a much larger puzzle. And today, we're going to put those pieces together for you.
Okay, our story kicks off in Somalia, where one single traumatic event lit the fuse on a much bigger regional powder keg. So imagine this, the Somali president's plane has just touched down at an airport, and then, all of a sudden, chaos. Mortar shells start raining down. It was a coordinated, audacious, and very clear attempt to take his life.
Now, this wasn't just some random act of terror. Not at all. This whole incident pulls back the curtain on a dangerous proxy war. The source alleges that, yeah, al-Shabaab carried out the attack, but they were supposedly acting on behalf of Ethiopia. And get this, the president was saved by his security team, a team reportedly trained and armed by another regional heavyweight, Egypt.
So yeah, that attack? It was just a symptom of something much bigger. It was a flashpoint in a huge geopolitical power struggle. So let's zoom out and take a look at the two competing visions that are tearing this region apart.
At the heart of all this are two totally opposite goals for Somalia's future. You've got President Mohammed, who has Egypt's full support, fighting to rebuild a single, unified country with a strong central government. But on the other side, Ethiopia is alleged to want the exact opposite, a weak, fractured Somalia made up of little states, which would keep a powerful rival from rising up on its border.
Egypt's involvement has gotten so big that, get this, Ethiopian media has reportedly come up with a new and kind of alarming name for it, the Egyptian NATO.
And look, they're not just throwing that name around for no reason. While the numbers are all over the place, some reports are claiming a massive deployment, up to 30,000 Egyptian troops right along the border, with fighter jets and drones to back them up. And their official mission? To build the Somali National Army into a real professional fighting force.
And you can see this partnership in action right here, in the critical southwest state. In a pretty swift operation, the newly trained Somali army marched into a region it hadn't set foot in for decades. They took control fast, and they kicked out the local leader, who was supposedly an ally of Ethiopia.
But here's the thing, this fight isn't just about soldiers and guns. The source material points to another front, a huge pressure point that could totally derail Ethiopia's plans. A major financial scandal. And the timing here? Man, it could not be worse for Ethiopia. Right when they're tangled up in this complicated proxy war, they're now allegedly staring down a massive economic crisis, with our source reporting a huge investigation by the International Monetary Fund.
And these aren't small-time accusations. We're talking about really serious stuff here. Our source claims Ethiopia's entire state budget was faked, and that IMF money meant for things like energy and power was just stolen. The fallout? A big international investigation and the threat of some really painful economic sanctions.
Now, this chaos in the Horn of Africa isn't happening in a bubble. According to our source, it's connected to an even bigger, more shadowy threat that's popping up just across the Red Sea in the Arabian Gulf, a threat allegedly being orchestrated by Iran.
All right, this is where it gets into some serious cloak and dagger territory. A leaked, and I should stress, unconfirmed intelligence report makes a pretty shocking claim that actual operational teams from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, described as Mafia cells, have already slipped into several Gulf countries. We're not just talking about spies here. We're talking about organized units ready to cause some real trouble.
And that report says these cells are spread out pretty evenly across the major Gulf players, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar. But you'll notice one country is missing from that list, and the source makes a point of it. Oman isn't mentioned.
So what are they trying to do? Well, the report claims they're mapping out all sorts of American and Western targets. The endgame here seems to be to completely wreck the Gulf's reputation as a safe, stable place to do business and diplomacy. It's a direct threat to their global image.
Okay, so with all these threats boiling over in both East Africa and the Gulf, you can bet the diplomatic and military chessboard is getting a major shakeup. Things are changing, and they're changing fast.
And here's a twist you might not have seen coming. The source claims that Iran has actually asked Egypt to step in and mediate talks with the United States, and they specifically want those talks to happen in Cairo. Egypt has reportedly said yes, but laid down some strict rules, telling both sides it won't put up with any strategic deceptions.
And facing down this alleged threat from Iran, the Gulf nations are reportedly doing something huge. For the first time, their leaders and defense ministers are meeting to build something that's never really existed before. Not just a paper alliance, but a real, unified joint military force to defend the whole region.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from the battlefields in Somalia to these high-stakes diplomatic meetings, the entire geopolitical map is being redrawn and fast. Old fights are sparking new threats, and new alliances are popping up to deal with them. The big question we're left with is, out of all this chaos, who is going to come out on top and shape what this critical part of the world looks like next?